Hello, you lovely lot, and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, as always, Josh Carr, and it's a very special one today for me. I'm very, very, very excited for this one, because you know that I always bring a guest with me. We've had some wonderful guests, and this one is a banger. We have Sontaran extraordinaire, Dan Starkey, with us today.
Hello.
Hello, Dan. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm fine.
Good,
yes.
Good. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. When I announced this on my socials, a lot of people were very, very, very excited. So,
that's nice to know.
Yes, they were very excited for me to chat to you, and boy, have we got a lot to chat about. So, we'll dive straight in,
okay.
And we're here to talk about Doctor Who. So, where did Doctor Who start for you? Were you a fan of the show growing up?
Oh, yes, it started when I was very, very young.
Very young.
I remember being captured by it when I must have been about 3 or 4. So really, really quite tiny. Because I can remember just the tail end of Tom Baker. So Tom Baker's last season as it came out.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a couple of images are quite sort of indelibly scored onto my memory.
Yeah. What images in particular would
the Marshmen in full circle.
Yeah.
Marshmen in full circle, because they're quite they were very frightening.
Yeah.
When you're 3, well, they're a good design anyway, but they've got terrifying when you're 3 years old. So I'm not sure. I might have not watched it for a couple of weeks as a result of that, and then so like the tail end of I remember the tail end of Warrior's Gate, but then Keeper of Traken. I remember that was with the Melka.
Yeah.
That being the first sort of story, and then Logopolis.
Yeah.
Which I thought was called the Gobolis, because I didn't quite
the Gobolis. I like that.
Yes, Doctor Who has met the Gobolis.
Well, I think it should be officially renamed, in my opinion.
Yes, and the hand coming out of the police box and it's like throttling a policeman.
Yeah,
that was very exciting.
Quite dense stories for a 3 or 4-year-old to have their introduction to Who.
I think it's just but no matter the storytelling, and Legopolis is a very strange story in lots of ways.
Yeah,
but it's just got great images to it as well. There's lots of things which are quite visually arresting.
Yeah,
and enough mystery and interesting. I thought, what is going on?
Yeah,
it's kind of it's really interesting. And then because there was quite a big gap in between Tom Baker's last episode and Peter Davison's first.
Mm-hmm.
They had a repeat season called The 5 Faces of Doctor Who in 1982, where they repeated, I think it was An Unearthly Child, The Crotons, The 3 Doctors, Carnival of Monsters, and then sort of the last 3 Tom Baker stories. So basically it was seeing all these different things, basically the idea of this character called Doctor who could be different people in different times. Yeah. I think that was amazing as a kind of thing, and so I think that turned me into being very enthusiastic. So
yeah, and obviously Doctor Who fans are known for being very enthusiastic. Did it sort of carry on from there? Were you sort of hooked for good, or did you sort of dip in and out at all? Or?
Oh no, I was definitely it was definitely a fixture. So I had to watch every episode.
Yeah,
and when I was a little bit older, when I was about 6, I got my first. I think for my birthday, I got my first sort of proper Doctor Who book, the Doctor Who Technical Manual, when I was about 6,
mm-hmm.
Because it was the same time as the 5 Doctors came out, and then I started to reading the books and all that sort of thing. And yes, I was the kid at primary school that my classmates said wouldn't shut up about Doctor Who, and so it was kind of. I could talk about some other things, but sort of definitely everyone was left in no doubt that sort of like he's drawing a Dalek again now.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose. In terms of eras, we probably have quite different experiences, because when I was that sort of age, Doctor Who was the biggest show on TV. But your sort of era was sort of when it was starting to tail off slightly, wasn't it? When going into the 80s and
But there's this received idea. People still watched it. Lots of kids still watched it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Some didn't, but it was still part of popular culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think it wasn't sort of heralded by the main. There was some official opinion that sort of said that it wasn't as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
Because I used to get my Doctor Who magazine every month, and then having just watched a story with Colin Baker in, and then reading that his page going, a real Doctor Who fan knows that actually this isn't very good. And then you sort of read this and it's like, oh, really? I must not know anything then. And then it's like, oh yeah, it's not as good as the episode which I remember seeing with William Hartnell in 1962, so in 1965 rather. And then sort of like, oh, right, oh, yeah, it definitely isn't as good as it used to be. And then, of course, when they started releasing everything on video in the 1990s, people went, oh, the web planet. Right, okay, this is quite...
Yeah,
it might have been really, really impressive in your memory from sort of nearly 30 years ago. But it's funny how there was that big sort of... when I was in my teens, when I sort of like... I didn't stop sort of like sort of watching it, but it seems to be the only thing that I was interested in the same way. But so like there was that quite sort of that reformation within sort of fandom when all of a sudden sort of like there weren't gatekeepers in quite that way there had been when I was a kid. You know, you couldn't watch old episodes. So something like a season repeat was hugely important. But yeah, just it sort of, and then UK Gold started showing it on satellite and everything, and so there was quite another like, hang on, okay, you said. The people who are meant to know about this said this is the best story ever, and something like this is different thing. So it's a very different. It's a different period now when everything everywhere all at once.
Yes, very much so. I mean, it's good to know that Doctor Who fans have changed and gotten more mature over the years.
Oh, absolutely, you know,
yeah. I think when I was hearing you talk, then I was like, I think I've seen this film before, many times. We're just destined to repeat ourselves over and over. And obviously, I touched on it there that I grew up with Doctor Who in its sort of pomp in terms of New Who. And that's when you got involved.
Yes.
Obviously, for people at home, I assume people will know. But in case people don't recognise you behind the prosthetics, you are... sort of one of the mainstays of the Sontarans on the show. You've played a Sontaran many times, and that obviously started back in series 4 with the Sontaran stratagem and the Poison Sky.
Yes.
So how did that come about, and how did you get involved in the show?
Oh well, it was giving a prod at the right time.
Yeah.
And just being, I think, with lots of these things, it's coincidence and it's luck or whatever, but also when you do have the opportunity, making the most of it. So it wasn't long after I'd left drama school, because I went to drama school when I was a little bit older. Yeah. So I sort of, I was just sort of like shy of my 30th birthday when I auditioned, because I'd been doing a play in the summer of 2007. Which was a Shakespeare play in the middle of a forest in Ipswich, so it was really quite remote. Yeah. And a casting director who'd seen me at drama school wanted to get me in to audition for a TV part. And this was before the time of self-tapes, which is basically the standard now, where you could put yourself on tape on your phone or on your tablet or whatever, or your computer, and then send it off. That didn't happen then, so you had to go in physically into the building and sit in front of a video camera and talk to people. And so I couldn't get there because I was working, and then I was just like a substantial way away. So having a chat with my agents, who said, no, these things happen, you know, it's like buses, you know, things come all once. I was just saying off the top of my head, oh, it's my birthday next month. I'd really love to be on Doctor Who because it's my favourite programme. And she went, oh, well, and so I don't know. I think they must have put a casting brief out. I don't know if they cast Chris Ryan already, but I think they'd made the decision that the Sontarans were going to be quite compact when they came back, you know, because Chris Ryan's about my height or sort of like, or similar. And so they thought, okay, this Sontaran's going to be quite small, menacing and horribly powerful. And so if you've got a casting brief then that sort of says between like 4'10" and 5'3" or something like that, then okay, I fit that bill, and there's much fewer actors going up for it. So I think just giving a prod at that time meant that I got invited to audition, and then I went there feeling as if I'd sort of done about sort of 25 years of research for this. So I was able to get my old my VHS of the Time Warrior out that I got when I was 11 or 12. So to do some research, and also excitingly, I got sort of like a draft of the script for the new series.
Nice.
The first draft of the Poison Sky, of the Sontaran stratagem rather, which is very interesting because lots of it's interesting to see how it changed as well. But that was very useful to get an idea about what they wanted, and so I went into the audition and met Douglas McKinnon, director, and Susie Liggett, who was a producer, and also I was Andy Pryor, the casting director's assistant, called Andy Briley, and I did a couple of reads. Basically, I had learned the script inside out because I wasn't going to miss out this one. And I was also bunking at the time with a very, very old friend of mine from school, and we used to swap we used to swap Doctor Who videos with each other when we were kids. So he was able to read opposite me and give it the slightly way. So I first of all did one reading that was quite straight, just to sort of show that I'm a proper actor. You know, I can sort of like do emotions, and I was like, and Douglas was very good. Oh yeah, I could see you change your gears. That's really nice. Yeah. And then I think Susie said, okay, that's nice. Can you be a bit more alien?
Yeah.
Interpret that how you will. I was like, right, okay, how far can I go with this? And then sort of like, is this better? And then, you know, I'm suddenly threatening, and it's a scene where I'm sort of, I think I was tying Martha Jones to a table, or sort of threatening the doctor and having a face-off and going, yes, and just being as, and then went, oh, great, yeah, you interpreted that really well. And then I think there were lots of other people sort of going up for it, but then I got that, and that was nice. And so I was kind of Chris Ryan, General Starr's Oppo in that.
Yeah.
And I think when we were doing all because it was the good old days of Doctor Who Confidential.
Yeah.
When they were interviewing me for that, and I knew a lot about the Sontarans. And they went, oh, okay. Because the series is made by people who were big fans of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's appreciated. We speak a common language in that way. So it was great. And it was, you know, if it had only been just that experience of those 2 episodes, it was enormous fun because, you know, it's the whole, I've told this many times before, but there was one point where I was just running around a warehouse with a zap gun, shooting unit soldiers. And then it suddenly occurred to me, I'm getting paid to do this. This is ludicrous. Because, you know, they haven't died properly. Sorry. You know, getting the directors to go over, yeah, I shot them zap. So could you get them to sort of, oh, yeah, of course, Dan. Yeah, well.
Yeah.
It's just absolutely sort of being back in the playground.
Yeah.
And
I could imagine you wanting to can we just run over, this isn't war, this is sport again? Because that's a great line. It's a great line as well.
Oh, absolutely. And certainly when we had the read-through for the episode as well, it was the whole thing of you could sort of try and underplay it and understate things, but it's like you've got he laughs with savage joy while shooting soldiers and says, this isn't war, this is sport. And so I really went for it at the table point, and it's like it brought the house down.
Yeah.
You know, and so like Russell was joyous, yes, and it's like, there we go. I'm not doing it for the sake. I'm embracing the character, and you know that's how it should be done. And I think it's all about finding fun and bringing the joy to it. And I think certainly at that period, because it was Doctor Who was in its pomp, and I remember like with the read through, everyone was there in the room. You know, it's about 50 odd people sort of like in the room with the production team and all the other actors, and sort of actually near 100. It's a big conference room, and then Russell, David, and Catherine come in, sweep in. And, you know, it's a bigger show on TV, and David's nearly sort of off book, and he's being the Doctor, and it's like, it was just, you know, it was definitely joy. I was definitely pleased to be part of that gang.
Yeah, well,
it just, I can imagine, inside the room.
I can imagine. Yes. I mean, like being like an actor, being a young actor, you know, going into that, like you said, fresh out of drama school, and that being an experience is enough on its own. Yeah. But then to add in being a Doctor Who fan your whole life, basically, just adds that extra element, doesn't it?
Yes. I bumped into my old pal Phil Mulrine, so like who's from university and drama school, and he's also written for Big Finish several times.
Yeah.
As an other said, so what are you doing? Oh, so you're retiring now, are you? Because immediately after this, so it was going to better. I stuck at it, despite.
Yeah, and obviously you said there, it's you know, you would have been happy if it was just those 2 times, but we all know it definitely hasn't just been those 2 times. You've been back many times to the point where, and someone does mention this later on in the Twitter section, that you are essentially the definitive Sontaran actor at this point.
That's very nice.
You are. I mean, when
I've had the opportunity to do it quite a few times.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I mean, when I think Sontarans, I think of you. Sorry, that sounded really romantic.
There we go.
But yeah, I mean, and just sitting across from you now, obviously virtually, and hearing that voice that I've heard so many times coming out of your mouth is very strange. It's like an out of body experience.
I mean, I remember years ago, I was on set as Strax, and I was having a chat with Stephen Moffat, and he said wasn't really looking at me, and they sort of turned around and saw me in the full Strax outfit. Went, no, sorry, I can't talk to you about it. It's too weird. my voice coming out of Strax's head.
Yeah,
you know, it is quite sort of jarring. Yeah. And the thing is, the thing about prosthetics like that, it's an event when you come on set.
Yeah,
you know, it's really it does so much the work for you because it looks amazing, and it's kind of like it's, you know, and everyone's, oh God, is that real? You know, it's kind of poking your head and it's like having a go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's fad.
Yeah. Well, the prosthetic work is incredible, and I imagine it's one of the things that you get asked about probably the most. But I feel like I'm obligated to ask, What's it like? How long does it take? And does it do your head in at this point, having to sit in a chair for that long and get made like a baked potato?
Well, it takes about up to 3 hours, and it usually happens very, very early in the morning.
Yeah.
So the early starts, the thing is, I realised that with my body clock, I'm okay after about 5, but if it's before then, that's when you sort of feel, your body's telling you, no, should be moving on this time. But so, if it get, at least with the old Sontaran design, up to and including Strax, they would get the head, they would sort of put the cowl on, this big sort of baked potato bit, and then put a much thinner mask over my face. And once they sort of like glued that to my face, then it got to the point where I could more or less doze.
Yeah.
And sort of like, just because there's not much on. With the more recent ones, with the Flux Sontarans,
yeah,
very different design. So it's got about 4 different pieces. So you're being poked around a bit more. So it's a bit more difficult to kip. But when you're tired, you're tired. So, and I think it's the whole thing with doing prosthetics, you do sort of, also with film, I think with any kind of like, physically strenuous thing like that, you work out how to get your rest when you can.
Yeah.
So having micro naps all the time, it's because and just being, back into it when you need to be, it's kind of it's an altered state.
Yeah.
That's I remember sort of talking to Peter Capaldi during his first episode, during Deep Breath, because he'd just come off doing, I think he was in Maleficent with Angelina Jolie, and he'd been to like King of the Fairies or something. And I think because it's film, but they've got different working hours, I think he was in prosthetics for about 6 hours having stuff glued onto him.
Yeah.
And so he's very much, see what you're doing, pal. It's kind of a just to sit tight and it's like, And he, the way we talked about it, it's almost like a fight or flight thing, fight or flight response. As soon as you're kind of in that kind of thing, then you're in a slightly sort of heightened thing that so like you can turn yourself off, but equally you have to be able to launch back into it pretty quickly. So it is a slightly parallel sort of place that you step into.
Yeah.
And also because things like your hearing gets slightly knocked out because it's muffled.
Yeah.
Sight's not too bad. With the most recent one, with the Flux Sontarans, I had separate teeth as well. So that was another thing, glorious thing to try and play with too.
I was going to say, it's a lot harder to recognise you in the newer design. It's an incredible design.
It's a fab design.
Fantastic.
It's lovely.
I've come to the point I can recognise you from your voice alone, and I think many other people can. But it's much harder to recognise the actors, but I do like that as well because you sort of do get lost in the alienness of it. We've mentioned him a couple of times. We've got to talk about Strax. Everyone's favourite Sontaran. Surely.
Yes.
He's what a glorious idea, first of all. And I'm intrigued about how that idea came about from your perspective and how Stephen sort of approached you about the concept of Strax, who is essentially like almost like a pseudo companion friend of the Doctor, but also is a Sontaran. So it's a strange concept. How did that come about for you?
Well, simply, I was asked, would you like to do Doctor Who again in 2011? And it was a very, very quiet year as well, so I was even more enthusiastic than usual. And I was like, oh, yes, great. And I tried not to get too excited because obviously Chris Ryan had done a little cameo in the previous season. And, it had a couple of scenes, but it wasn't like a major contribution. So I don't know what this might be, might be a sort of thing. And then I got the script through and went, oh, this is fun. So I was like, I can do this. Yes. This chimes with my skill set. Yeah. In terms of, and again, it's very funny. It's a leap off the page as being like, that's a great gag. Got to land that, got to do that.
Yeah.
And again, doing it the read through, lines like, I can produce magnificent quantities of lactic fluid, that had everyone laughing for, however long it wasn't. And and then so like when we made A Good Man Goes to War, and so also I hit it off with quite a lot of like with Neve and Catherine was sort of met each other for the first time, and so like we had a good it was weird tough shoot to doing it in a big aircraft hangar near Cardiff because the acoustic was bizarre, so I was even more deaf than usual. But it was fine. But then obviously Strax died in that. But they were so pleased with how it had come across that they brought him back, which was nice.
Yeah.
And there was at no point did they say, right, this is fine. I just thought, do you want to be Strax again? It's like, yes. It's like, because we filmed the next couple of things out of order as well. So we started shooting the Crimson Horror first before the Snowmen.
Right. Okay.
So I went to the readery for that, and some Stephen and Mark were sort of like there. I was like, yeah, so Strax is alive. It's like, yeah, he is. So, is he all right about that? Yeah, he's fine with it. It's like, okay then, right, I'll just do that. But making light of the thing that, so eventually we did shoot a little Easter egg featurette which explained that Strax hadn't completely sort of carked it at Demon's Run, and so he was brought back to life. But I think there wasn't any explicit sort of thing sort of saying, we will develop in such and such a direction, but you get it's more instinctual that where the writer gets an idea about what the actor's voice is and what the actor can do and what the actor enjoys doing, and then it just starts to work together from there. And also the more that I played him, the more I could actually I don't improvise on screen in most of the stuff that you see. Yeah. So lots of people have accused, Strax is just Dan Starkey improvising. It's like, well, no, that's that. If it looks like I'm improvising the lines, that means I'm doing my job as an actor well, because that's the job. But yeah, and also because the lines are very, very well written gags, so quite a lot of them, and so getting those to land is quite a thing in itself. But as I went on, I understood Strax's voice more and more, so I could go into and out of character a lot more. So I did lots of little things. The Strax field report for YouTube, which previewed some of the new episodes and stuff, and then occasionally, basically, you notice it when it starts getting easier to learn the lines. So things like the when I did the introduction to the 50th anniversary special, the cinema special, the popcorn can feel pain. I remember sort of getting the script for that at quite short notice, just a couple of days before, and it was about 15 pages worth of it. So going, oh god, okay. But do you know what? I could learn it, in the space of, much quicker than I would have expected to, because, the character's in you now, and it's all thinking, okay, this will work. Yep, right. So we're kind of on the same page, even though we've never explicitly sort of talked about it. So it's kind of, it's just that useful sort of meeting together of different things. But that's the only bit of, I did, because I am an improviser as well, quite a lot of things about impro is that it's very difficult to do if you can't hear people properly and if your sort of senses are knocked out, because lots of it is reacting to things and hearing it offer and then sort of replying to that. So obviously, if you're in a great big rubber potato, then that sort of knocks out your ability to respond quickly to stuff. But on set, we were filming, I think it was the name of the doctor. And as happens on TV, a bit behind schedule, gets a bit fractious, so like, the lights aren't working or whatever, so like the little things, and the first assistant director, whose job it is to sort of like get things going and sort of make sure the schedule sort of like goes on, he was having a bit of a time. And then I started just killing time. I started making up Christmas carols in a Sontaran style. So sort of, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. It proved to be a tactical disadvantage because it enabled me to punch him in the dark. and I was making that up just for my own amusement. Yeah. And I said one of them to Matt, who went, that's really funny. Hang on, I'll get Saul, the director. And Saul came along, the Saul Metzstein, our director, came along and so went, oh, that's very funny. Oh, all right, hang on. We won't tell the first AD, but after this next scene, just crowd around the console. And then so we sort of got the camera together, and so like the first AD, hang on, this isn't the schedule. What is going on? There's a time and place for this. And so like really getting quite shirty. So I was like going, oh god, is this going to sort of crash and burn? Then I did my little sort of first little carol, and then all the crew and all the cast just sort of started laughing hugely. And it went upstairs, and none of us got sacked. So that was very nice. But that was my contribution to so actually sort of writing Strax on screen. And it was a lovely little thing that it's still on YouTube somewhere, but it's a nice, it's my little contribution towards it, which is nice to see.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, you're obviously Strax, and I think, like we've said, you're sort of the definitive Sontaran actor at this point. And I know that you've co-written them with John Dorney for Big Finish as well, and you've returned many times on Big Finish. One thing that I very quickly wanted to mention was Salvation 9. Timothy X Attack was on the podcast last year.
Brilliant.
And I gushed to him about how much I adore that. It's probably my favourite Sontaran story. I loved it. And I thought you were fantastic in it. I just wanted to say,
Thank you. It was a really fun story.
Really fun one to do, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But like I said, when I think of Sontarans, I think of you, and I imagine if you're thinking of writing a Sontaran story for Doctor Who or for Big Finish, then you're going to be top of the list. So what's it like to sort of hold that and knowing that you grew up with, you know, Sontarans and these characters, what does it feel like to sort of have these Sontarans inside you, like you said, with the characters?
It's great, you know. The thing is, you know, I always talk about my you know, my inner 8-year-old is very well sated.
Yeah.
You know, he thinks it's great.
Yeah.
You know, because it's funny. It is absolutely that kind of. You get the chance to sort of play as an adult with stuff that sort of gave you joy as a child, and why wouldn't you want to? You know, why wouldn't you celebrate that? It's fab. It's yeah. I mean, excuse me. You can't be too constrained by it in some ways as well. Like you know, Strax is a subversion of the classic Sontaran sort of thing. So if I had gone, no, Commander Lynx wouldn't have done that in the Time Warrior, then that that wouldn't work very well, and that would be sort of like that would be misrepresenting my job as an actor. But yeah, I suppose I'm not sort of precious about it, but it's definitely, I think all the Sontaran stuff that I've done, it's written by people who get the characters, and when they do interesting things or innovative things, it's not sort of. I think by and large they're quite respectful of it. I mean, so like people. So I also said Stephen wrote the Sontarans too comically, but it's there at the start really. So of Lynx, you know, so in terms of Lynx, we're not invited to sort of. It's not like the Klingons in Star Trek. It was like, oh yes, they are warrior people, and we must respect them because they have their way of life. There's that kind of thing. It's like, no, they're military idiots.
Yeah,
they're monstrous and they're awful. And we should laugh at them.
It's sort of the mockery of that imperialism and stuff like that, isn't it? And
the toxic militarism as well. It's kind of
And I think there's always a balance, and you can tip either way. I think you know. Like, I mean, even in Flux, because obviously you came back for Flux, and the Sontarans came back with a bang in Flux, and War of the Sontarans, there's comedic moments in it, but I think it does err more on the side of they are a massive destructive force, and then the Vanquishers,
and having the chance to actually show that on screen in a way they've never had the chance to do that before as well. I think. Like obviously with the Poison Sky, we see the Sontarans as a big military force and stuff. I think. Just the scale of that, it's beautiful. You know, all the stuff like the Sebastopol scenes are fantastic in that as well. And I'm very jealous of Johnny Watson that he got to ride a horse and I didn't.
Oh, did you not get to ride a horse? Did you not?
I did get to ride a horse, which is a shame.
Oh no!
I think I would have been terrified just inside that suit trying to do that and sort of not spook the horse. But you did get the chocolate line, which I think it might be the most I've ever laughed at Doctor Who. In my entire life. Oh, very good.
I had to pause it. I was reduced to tears because, you know, I went online and I saw some people like that who were, you know, sort of, the Sontarans are meant to be, you know, these big, strong aliens. They can't do that. Yeah. That's exactly what a Sontaran would do. It's hilarious. It's brilliant. Absolutely love it. So we're going to take a quick break now.
Okay.
But when we come back, we've got some features to attend to. So we'll see you in a moment.
See you in a moment.
Hello. And well, I've started going really official with these hellos when I come back from the break. I'm really sorry, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Very ASMR. Hello and welcome back to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am still your host, Josh Carr, and I am still here with Dan Starkey, of course. And it's that time of the show, one of my favourite times of the show, where we get to go over to the features and we get to see what Dan would like to submit to the DVD collection.
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp, or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
So, the DVD collection, for anyone who doesn't know, is a collection of Doctor Who stories that are submitted by my wonderful guests that are deemed to be the upper echelons, the top bins, the top banana of Doctor Who, quintessential Doctor Who. And we've got some glorious episodes in here, and another one is going in tonight. So, Dan, please enlighten us as to what you would like to put in the DVD collection.
Right. Well, you've got some excellent ones in there already. So lots of ones I would have chosen have already been claimed.
What ones were you nearly going to choose?
Oh, Curse of Fenric.
Oh, yeah.
Remembrance of the Daleks. Genesis of the Daleks.
Funnily enough.
Yeah, lots of
Curse of Fenric was put in by Sophie Aldred herself.
Oh, well,
because she couldn't put Remembrance of the Daleks in because someone else had already taken that. So
there you go.
There you go. But yeah, please enlighten us. What have you chosen instead?
This has occurred to me as a bit of a whim, but actually thinking about my backdrop, it's quite appropriate. But I thought, do you know what? I'd really like the Image of the Fendel.
Oh,
which is not adjudged to be a qualified success in some circles, but it's great. I think it's one of those stories because I'm too young to have seen it when it was first on, but I read the Target novelization of it when I was very young, and I remember reading it in the back of a car on a long journey through the night. It's like on my mum and dad's car, and looking at my reflection in the night window and being absolutely terrified. Again, it's the images, it's all those sorts of things. It's just it's a really sort of it's a nice bit of gothic horror.
Oh, it is. It's right in the middle of that gothic. Gothic Tom and Leela.
Yes.
You know, it's definitely got that sort of cozy, like, that'll go down nicely with a cup of tea, Mrs. kind of vibe.
Yes.
And
it's got sort of like a remote surrounding. Again, I watched it sort of later on when I actually sort of got hold of the VHS. And actually, as a story, it doesn't actually make that much sense in some places. But good old Uncle Terence in the novelization makes it all make sense perfectly well.
Of course he does.
It's like, unlike some other sort of bits of slightly more gothic sort of Doctor Who stories, like I almost, again, in deference to sort of like stories that I saw when they first came out. So Ghostlight, which is another sort of fab one, but it's got that kind of with all the later McCoy stuff, which I really love. It doesn't feature the TARDIS as much because I know Andrew Cartmel had quite a revisionist idea about it. Let's not use the TARDIS so much, but you've got sort of scenes set in the TARDIS. You've got sort of like time loops. You've got sort of evil from the dawn of time. I'm quite a sucker for that sort of thing. You've got some sort of slightly sort of Quatermassy sort of ideas going on, but it's just, and it's got that atmosphere of gloom, but it's also got sort of, it's a bit like the demons. It's got sort of like guys in robes chanting. It's got Nazi stuff happening in the basement. You've got the Fendeline, which it's a horrible design. That's sort of almost Lovecraftian in its way, and the fact that you can kill them with rock salt, which isn't really explained, but it's like a giant slug, so fair enough. And what exactly how the Fendel and its nucleus, the Gestalt entity, would sort of fit together, it's never quite explained, but it's horrible. So and the transformation of Wanda Ventham from a sympathetic character into this sort of like into the priestess of the Fendeline. It's of the Fendel. It's great. And just I remember asking my mum and dad. There were sort of phrases like a place where evolution went down a blind alley and a creature evolved that just fed off death. Dad, how would that work? It's like I don't know. I don't think it would. I think that's a slightly more poetic use of language. But how would it work? I was quite literal sometimes when I was a kid. It's like, no, can we make a TARDIS, Dad? It's like, no, well, we could make something that was a bit like a TARDIS, so it would have lights to flash up. No, I want to make a real one. It's like, okay. because I was a bit like that.
Yeah. Weren't we all?
Yes, yes.
But yeah, wonderful pick. It was great to see. Image of the Fendel.
And it's got a nice sort of like all the later McCoy stuff as well, which I love. If they'd been able to shoot, because it was all on location, Curse of Fenric. If they'd been able to shoot that on film, that would have been great. But all the 70s stuff that's shot, outside shots on sort of like, on whatever, 35mm film, it just cleans up for the Blu-ray stuff so beautifully. Like all those bits in Genesis of the Daleks, where it's like it just suddenly looks, wow, that looks like a film.
Mm-hmm.
A film, and because Fendel's got some of that as well in the woods with loads of dry ice. Yeah. Fab.
Nice.
It's got shades of Evil Dead going on. It's great.
Wonderful pick with Image of the Fendel, and I think Tom is clearing it in the lead at the moment, possibly with the most stories in the DVD collection. It's been a dead heat between him and David for a while, as you'd expect.
Oh, right,
But,
okay.
yeah. Very, 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 very glad to see Image of the Fendal in. Speaking of things that feed on death, we're going to take a look over at that wonderful hellscape, bloody Twitter.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
Oh, God.
Oh,
Yes.
Oh, God, indeed. Yeah.
One very good segue.
Thank you. It seemed, because a lot of the stories that go in the DVD collection often link to, there's always a horror or a creature. I can always link it back in some way to either Twitter or Elon Musk. There's some way I can link it. So we've got some questions from our wonderful listeners, and we're gonna fire through. Didn't pick the easiest choice of words there. Fire through a few of these. Our first question is from Ewan at British Shadow GG. I'm going to start with the compliment that he's put in there, because, always like a little pick-me-up. I adore your audiobook readings, most recently Emancipation, and your variety in the Assassination Run and the Treachery Game audiobooks.
Yes, that was a couple of years ago for Big Finish. Yeah, blimey.
So,
yes,
wonderful work there. And their question relates to it. With your recent portrayals as the 5th and 12th Doctors for Big Finish, are there any other Doctors that you'd like to read for?
Oh, gosh. I've done a few for BBC Books as well. So I've done quite a few of them now. 5th Doctor I found quite tricky, because obviously Tom Baker has got a very distinctive voice, and John Culshaw has done the legwork on that. So I've done the 4th Doctor for like the BBC Books, and the 3rd. Actually, one of the first ones I did was the 3rd Doctor. And again, you've got the slight sort of semi-lisp, so it's possible to hang things off. And I've done Sylvester as well for actually, I've done most of them. I've done most of the classic Doctors, I think, in some shape or form.
Yeah.
But Sylvester's great. He's got that sort of particular cadence. Yeah. It's really nice to get very excited about things. Yeah, so I can, even if I'm sitting in the vocal booth, I can get very excited.
Very good.
Actually, but a really fun one was doing Doctor Who and the Cricket Men for BBC Books. It was James Goss. James Goss's version of Douglas Adams' script. And again, that was a very long one. That was whole 3 days of me being Tom Baker. And it was, quite taxing. But they're really fun, so like doing those big full reads like that, because obviously you're reading prose, and so it's a different thing from just doing a dramatic script. But the way in which I do it, just because multi-voice stuff is kind of like is my logic, I tend to cast it. So I get their chance to kind of like be the casting director with lots of classic actors. Yeah. So like with the Cricket Men, it's basically most of the cast of the original Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy show up in there. It's how I can reproduce their tones, or it just comes out because I just absorbed that when I was growing up. Or likewise, there's a John Pertwee, and there's a 3rd Doctor, BBC book called A Morality Tale, which is really quite a dark one. It's very good, but it's set during the Big Fog in 1952. Yeah. In the East End, amongst all these kind of like gangsters, and so basically it's quite a challenge. So because you've got Doctor and Sarah. So reproducing them is one thing, but then what I would usually do in order to differentiate different characters, I'll give them like a different accent or a different sort of something. But they're all around about the same age. They're all sort of like working class Cockneys, and they're all from Shoreditch. So how do I differentiate that? So basically, I cast it like sort of, okay, that character's Bob Hoskins in The Long Good Friday. That's Michael Caine in Get Carter. That's Boycie from Only Fools and Horses. Basically, and just sort of populating it that way. So it's fun. It's quite a challenge, and you can't wing it. You've got to do your homework with it. But it's very satisfying when you really put it off. And so Emancipation of the Daleks, that was that was Johnny's big Johnny Morris's big oeuvre during lockdown. I think he wrote it, and sort of like and yes, just Pete. I enjoy doing Peter's voice as well. Yeah, because he's it can be quite taxing after a while, because it can't actually the first time I did the 12th Doctor and Clara for BBC Books, that was thinking, oh God, I really hope I don't get this wrong, and it's going to be Billy Connolly talking to Jane Horrocks. It's like, all right, Dalek, no, all right, Doctor, what say now? But it came out all right.
Good.
But with each one, you hope that you learn.
Yeah, I mean, Peter's got a good a good lead. I always find when I do impressions, which I'm not incredible at, but when I do impressions, I always find my word to get me in, and you can't pick a better word than Clara. Clara.
Yes.
It's the best one for it. Our next question from Jacob at No Not the Memes said, I think the most in-character thing for me to ask, I think Jacob's a very big Master fan, big fan of the Master, would be to ask him about his run at the Master's voice in the TV movie novelisation. With the inevitable return of Roger Delgado's Master in the audios, would you want to toss your hat in the ring to play the part?
Oh, God, if they let me. That would be quite fun. Yes, I haven't tried doing that, actually, so I'd have to have a think about it. But, because he's got a very rich brown voice, Roger Delgado. So, but I haven't tried doing that before.
Yeah.
But I'd have to think about it.
It's a good start. I mean, there's
a start. But he's got such a nice, warm sort of tone to it. It's kind of and it's with the TV movie, because I did the book of that. So like I deliberately didn't watch the TV movie again, because obviously I remember I taped it off the TV when it first came on, so I have watched it several times. But I wanted it to be its own thing a bit more. So I don't think I tried to do a direct impersonation of Eric Roberts, because in any case, then he starts sort of doing the same line readings as they had, in the actual TV version. Then it's like then that sort of, I think that defeats the point of doing it as an audio book, because it becomes its own thing. Yeah. You don't want to sort of like just, if I was doing the Brain of Morbius, I wouldn't want to just go sort of straight and do Philip Maddox.
Yeah, it's like a new interpretation of it, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. So it's and it's good. Yes, it's finding the story in a new way. But But no, certainly that's fun to conjure.
Yeah.
Big Finish let me.
I mean, there's tough competition, because
I suspect John Culshaw has got that.
I was going to say John Culshaw, and Jonathan Carley does a wonderful Roger Delgado as well. He does.
Oh, right, okay.
He does. He did it in. Miles Taylor does it as a wonderful fan audio series. There's a Sontaran story in there as well that's really good. But yeah, it's a fan made audio series, and he did a multi-Doctor story with the Third Doctor. It's very much a Third Doctor era, but with a sort of quite a modern Doctor. And there's a lovely Delgado reveal in that, and Jonathan Carley pops up and plays Delgado, and he does a wonderful job. So I'd highly recommend that to anyone listening. So the next question is from Timbo16. I can't see the numbers. 1834. Thanks for all the numbers, guys. Timothy Krellick. So you've been a recurring Sontaran and one of Santa's elves so far. What other types of characters in the Whoniverse would you like to tackle?
Oh, I would love to be a Time Lord with his own TARDIS. I want my own TARDIS.
Yes.
I drew loads of one of the stories I thought about sort of for my DVD was a Doctor's Wife, just because you've got that TARDIS graveyard.
Yeah.
I just love drawing different TARDIS consoles.
Yeah.
So I want my own.
Yeah.
So it's, I know, so for Big Finish, Rufus Hound has done wonderful things with the Meddling Monk.
I was about to say,
and I would love to be a different version of a different incarnation of the Meddling Monk.
You'd be a great version of the Meddling Monk. I can see it now.
Yes.
I can see it now. Maybe
that would be fun.
Maybe the Corsair. Maybe the Corsair could come back.
Oh yeah,
swashbuckling.
Swashbuckling. Yes, with big trousers. and a tricorn hat.
Damler, friend of the show from the Come Along Pond podcast. She said, "What's your favourite episode you've ever starred in?"
Oh gosh, it's tricky.
It is. I can imagine.
I'm so lucky because I've always had really, really fun things to do in all of them. Oh gosh, I think it's a toss-up in between the Snowmen, because you've got the memory worm scene, and I remember watching that on Christmas Day, thinking, "Yeah, I'm making the nation laugh." So people are watching this all over the country, around the
Christmas
world.
Day.
And that's great.
On
Christmas Day. This really is, pretty good.
Yeah.
So enjoy this feeling. And the other one is in Time of the Doctor, when I got to do that pub brawl with the Flying Scotsman, with Archie. And we did, because Archie's stunt double was even bigger. And so, but they had a whole sugar glass window.
Yeah.
That sort of like we bashed through, and it's great. In terms of my class and drama school, I was not exactly going to be the obvious action hero, but just getting a chance to do that sort of thing, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's too difficult to say.
Too
I've
difficult.
got wonderful things.
Too difficult.
Wonderful things to do with all of them. So, yeah.
I mean, this is the comment that I mentioned before. Jeremy Duncan at Jeremy K. Duncan. Not a question, but I just wanted to say Dan is pretty much the most iconic Sontaran actor. Yes, even more so than Kevin Lindsay.
Oh, well, that's a very different thing, you know. Oh. Well, no, we wouldn't be doing it without Kevin Lindsay. So
Very true. Very true.
Dandruff on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah. And I debated whether to ask this question for a very long time, but, you know, we're all friends here, so let's go for it. Dear friend of the show, Ben, at Vacuum Comments, asked, Bob Holmes said that Sontarans have sex using the probic vent. Discuss. It's all he said.
Discuss. Oh, leave it open-ended, why don't you? Yes. Yeah. Yes. That hasn't occupied my thoughts as much as other bits of Sontaran lore.
Yeah.
Just I think the sensual pleasures of the Sontaran, given that they sort of like reproduce by cloning.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
No.
I'm not entirely sure.
It's never something you considered trying to go method for.
I haven't tried to give it too much thought.
Yeah. Good.
To be honest,
Good.
because you start holding yourself in a slightly different way. You know, it's kind of or protecting yourself. It's kind of like it's like there's that bit in Star Trek 6, isn't there, where they have a fight. It's like not every creature has its has a yes, when they kick something in its knees and it's like it goes it's a simple thing like that, isn't it? But it's a valid science fiction idea, but just not one which I've explored.
Yes.
Hugely.
Yes. And I'm sure one you're hoping you will never be questioned on again.
They like guns and blowing things up.
Exactly.
You know, it's the thing.
That's where they get their kicks.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Strax is 12. He doesn't think about that sort of thing.
You're very true. Very, very true.
Yeah.
So that was bloody Twitter. We didn't get through all the questions, but thank you for submitting them anyway. We're coming quite close to the end of the show, but we do have one feature to attend to before that. And it's my favourite, don't tell the others. But it's the wonderful, the glorious Corridor of Fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting
Yeah? Sarah Jane?
Do I have the right?
Some people's small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
Yes, and a nursery compared to us. 10 million years of absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could
No more. I'm not just the time. I'm the last of the time.
Justice appears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind.
Love abides in the face of everything.
Corridor of Fame.
Nice. I like it. The Corridor of Fame, again, for anyone, for any new listeners, for anyone who hasn't heard before, is basically a Hall of Fame. We've got a lovely long corridor adorned with ornate frames and portraits of the greats and the unsung heroes from Doctor Who history. Anyway, Dan, I would like to know who you would like to submit to the Corridor of Fame.
Well, I was rather surprised when I looked at the list of those who had chosen that our dear Stephen Moffat wasn't on there already.
Good. So Stephen's going in. That's...
Yeah, I think he should do.
Definitely.
Because Strax we wouldn't have Strax without Stephen.
Exactly.
And, you know, and I wouldn't have had some of the best gags I've ever had to say without him. So, yes, there's my deference to the man behind Doctors 11 and 12 and lots of other episodes beside that.
Yes.
And The Curse of Fatal Death. I think, yeah, he's...
one of my favourite writers of all time, of course.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone who scared me to death. He's made me laugh many times, a lot of the times through you. And, yeah, it's good to have one of the other showrunners on. So we're working in order. We had Russell first, we had Stephen next. Then we'll have Chris, and then Russell will have to go in again.
That's how it
That's
works.
exactly how it works.
Yeah.
So
on a rota, yeah.
But yeah, it's wonderful to have Stephen. Aside from the ones that you're in, what Stephen Moffat stories spring to mind as some of your favourites?
Oh gosh,
it's hard. It's hard because he's written more stories than anyone else. So.
It is, and it's like as soon as I say one, then it's like they push themselves out. It's like the silence.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like thinking about what it goes out of my head.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was watching Girl. I've been doing a bit of a rewatch with the recent series. I'm like about halfway.
Mm-hmm.
I've just watched Asylum of the Daleks. I forgot that's got some great images in it.
Yeah.
Forget how dark some of it is as well.
Yeah.
Because it's leavened with humour. But that's the great thing about Doctor Who. You can get really disturbing ideas into things and also heartbreaking ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like it's done in such a way. It's very mind expanding for a programme that goes on after Strictly Come Dancing on a Saturday night. It's great how it can actually sort of bring people with with it. So like to sort of some quite interesting places.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, actually, it's completely atypical as an episode. But Hellbent. That's quite that's an extraordinary bit of TV.
Yeah.
That's kind of I mean it's even it's an outlier for Doctor Who as well. But I think for most things that you put even like mainstream dramas that take themselves seriously on the BBC, you don't get the chance to make TV like that. And it's kind of like do you know what?
Yeah,
we say no, we can make that, and it's almost like experimental stuff. It's almost like a sort of like a it's very singular, but also just well-crafted stories like The Girl in the Fireplace is delightful in sort of
yeah. I mean, I'm looking at the DVD collection now, for instance, just the list, and Stephen's work is peppered throughout. We've got
it's well represented.
Yeah, it is. Empty Child, Dr. Dance is probably in my top 3 of all time for me, and up there with Heaven Sent, which is another one. And Heaven Sent, Empty Child. There's so much. There's so many that you can talk about. But yeah, wonderful pick. Very well deserving. I'm quite shocked that it's taken this long for him to get in there as well, to be honest.
Oh, there we go.
Everyone's going to get in here at some point. I'm going to keep making them until everybody is in here. And then it's no longer a special club. It's just a list of everybody. But yeah, wonderful pick. Stephen Moffat is in the Corridor of Fame. And that brings us very nearly to the end of the show. I have one final question for you, Dan Starkey.
All right.
That I ask everybody at the end of every show. And I have to preface, I do say in a sentence, I should probably take this bit out because every single week I say, it doesn't have to be in a sentence. But, if you want to keep it compact, you can. But in a sentence, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
Doctor Who is a thrilling adventure in time and space that has taken me from childhood to adulthood and who knows beyond.
Oh, that's great. That's like a pitch for the show. I like it. That should be the tagline for Doctor Who.
As I said before, I got too maudlin.
Yes, I love it. Yep. Absolutely love it. And it has been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we go, I'm going to give you a bit of time to plug whatever you want to plug, where people can find you, what you're doing next, anything that you want to direct people towards. Go ahead.
Oh, gosh. Plugging. I'm not really on Twitter anymore.
Yes.
But yes. Social media, I think, is a bit overrated.
Yeah.
But I'm on Instagram if you want to see me in a hat. And I'm sure there's lots of Big Finish things coming up that I'm in.
Yeah.
But the release schedule of Big Finish bears no relation to the order in which it's recorded, so I couldn't tell you exactly what's coming up. So there we go.
I imagine there's probably going to be something coming up that you recorded about 5 years ago, and probably something coming up that you haven't even recorded yet. So
yes,
I imagine from what I've heard of the Big Finish schedule, it is it's a massive monster. I mean, they just pump stuff out like nobody's business, don't they?
They do.
Well, you've been listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I have been your host, Josh Carr. You can find me on Twitter at Josh Ryan Carr, and you can find me on the podcast socials, which is Who Knew Podcasts on Twitter, whoknewdwpod on Instagram, Who Knew Podcast on TikTok, because we're down and hip with the kids these days. And you can email in the show as well at whoknewdwpod@gmail.com. whoknewdwpod.com. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like, share, subscribe, comment below what your favourite Stephen Moffat stories are and what your favourite Sontaran stories are, because I love having a chat down in the comments. So that's about it. Dan Starkey, I have had an absolutely wonderful time chatting to you, so thank you for coming on.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you all for listening.
Sontaran.
Sontaran. Lovely. Lovely end to the show. We'll leave it there, because that's the perfect ending. Sontaran. Thanks for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. You can find us wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. Please give us a like, share, subscribe, and a review if you can. It really helps us out. Massive thanks to Oliver Chenery for the Corridor of Fame intro and the Sononauts for lending their cover of the Doctor Who theme to be the theme for the podcast. Who Knew is a New Kid Media production.